potentially landmark decision will be now held in the courts. College basketball. We've seen this a few times before. Now it's hitting the SEC. Former Alabama star Charles Bediako is now currently on Alabama's roster. This is after he was filed a temporary restraining order and granted that by a Tuscaloosa court, making him eligible to play for Alabama this weekend, with a court case coming next week. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. Patrick, we have talked about this topic for a couple of months now, mainly because some power players, national champion coaches, namely Tom Izzo of Michigan State, John Calipari, who used to coach at Kentucky, now coaches at Arkansas, were really outspoken about this. Now it hits Alabama. A former star who played in the G League is now being able to go back to college basketball. This is getting more interesting by the day, the more and more these things now get hung up in the courts.
You know, this is like appeasement to me.
Yeah.
We saw the first two examples with Louisville, and I believe the other one is escaping my mind. I don't think it was the Baylor situation. It was the one all the way back in like October.
Correct.
The original one.
Yes.
And the NCAA is like, okay, yeah, we'll give you this. And then Baylor was like, well, what if I want this? And they're like, okay, well, yeah, we'll give you this.
Right.
Now we're starting to see Bediako be like, all right, so why can't it be me as well?
Yes, right.
And so the NCAA is trying to put their foot down, but it seems like every time, you just throw the word lawsuit out there, they're like, no. We don't want to do this. We don't want to do this. Please don't sue us. So, I mean, and the fact that it's filed in a Tuscaloosa court, I mean, you're going to win that all the time. We're going to talk about Trinidad Chambliss tomorrow. His lawsuit was filed in Oxford, literally a mile away from the campus, and the judge is an Ole Miss law grad.
Right.
So, like, how in the world do you think that you're going to win that if you're the NCAA?
That's exactly
but
right.
You and I were both talking, and this is a little bit of a slippery slope right now because, yes, he's eligible right now, but what are the consequences if he does play and the NCAA ends up winning this?
Yeah, this is really sticky in a lot of ways. I'll give you the particulars. So the Tuscaloosa County, the circuit judge, his name is James H. Roberts. He has had this temporary injunction that is now filed. However, the court case is set for next Tuesday. If it is denied, well, if he does play in a game, the NCAA theoretically can come back and say, well, any game Charles Bediako played in, namely Saturday's game, but that is the only game. The Alabama's game against Tennessee is the only game between now and that preliminary injunction hearing there next week. He could be ineligible. So it could be a situation where Alabama does a wait-and-see approach. But it should be known just from a pure, just filing paperwork standpoint, he has enrolled in the school. He has now been able to been cleared by the court documents to be able to participate in all Alabama activities. So the injunction as of right now, the restraining order as of right now, is to not let the NCAA's rules, because the NCAA did rule him ineligible, not let the NCAA's rule apply in this situation against him particularly. So you're right. There could be a domino effect for Alabama if they do decide to play him. The good thing for Alabama is there's literally one game. This is a tough game. It's a tough game against Tennessee, but they should get this resolved relatively quickly. But you're right. It is the smaller wave of what could be a tsunami as it relates to college basketball altogether. Because what Alabama is saying is, it said this in the court documents, is that had Mr. Bediako known the changing landscape and known that he could have been compensated as a college basketball player, he would not have entered the draft 3 years ago. He would have come back to school. He would have stayed in school. And because of that, he's now trying to right a wrong decision that he made then. It's a compelling case because you can make that argument, but at the same time, too, I think if you're a basketball purist, you're like, hey, look, Mr. Bediako went to the NBA draft. I know he didn't get drafted, but he signed a two-way contract with the San Antonio Spurs organization. So he is, quote unquote, a pro player. I think that this hits at the heart of a couple of things. Number one, the legality. The legality of Bediako being able to play. That's an NCAA decision. Yeah. And then it's the morality might be too strong a word, but it's the sense of like, does this have a place? Does he have a place because he played in the G League not that long ago? Does he have a place in college basketball from a competitive standpoint? And what the NCAA is saying is, no, you're a pro athlete. And what Alabama is saying is he's not a pro athlete, and let him right his wrong decision because he did not see this tidal wave coming from the NCAA.
Yeah, and I honestly, if Mark Sears didn't get into a game, I'd say, well, why don't they try to get him next?
Bring everybody
it
back.
Just makes me wonder, seeing another year of LeBaron Philon right next to Mark Sears, see what that would have done. But I mean, when you look at this from an Alabama perspective, they could definitely use the rebounding help. We've been talking about that, so it just so happens to be, Charles Bediako wants to return. Oh, yeah, we would gladly take you back as long as the NCAA allows it. So I think this is going to be an interesting storyline to pay attention to as we get closer to tip-off on Saturday, whether or not Alabama and Nate Oates actually decide to insert him into the game. I mean, I'm sure he'll be on the bench. But weirdly enough, I do see a lot of Alabama fans on social media like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even like this. Me personally, I don't like this because I'm on the Coach Cal side where you got 5 years to play for. We cannot just have you going back on your own decision. When you make that decision to go to the NBA draft, that is final. You sign with an agent, that is final. You should not be able to come back because that's you taking the bet on yourself. You know the consequences. And now that we've had this open door, so to speak, with James Najee coming back and playing for Baylor, which I'm pretty sure they've lost every game since he's come back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Baylor program right now is in shambles, so to speak. I just don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's so weird. This isn't the sport that I know.
And it's funny because it was interesting because COVID threw one loophole as it relates to eligibility and how long players are staying in college.
Yeah.
And what was happening is at the back end of that, we're seeing right now the end of that era where those guys were either, late in high school or early in college, starting to see the last wave of that. What we're getting into now is really interesting, is the NCAA's right to not let a player retain his eligibility and where
Correct.
that right begins and where that right ends. And I think that I'm with you and Coach Cal that from a pure competitive standpoint, I don't like guys that are just playing in G League games and being professional athletes now getting the opportunity and the chance to play in college basketball games. And here's a perfect example. A guy for Auburn right now is Dylan Cardwell. Dylan Cardwell, he did exhaust his NCAA eligibility. But let's live in a hypothetical world where he didn't.
Yeah.
He has one more year. Well, Cardwell goes to the draft and he goes undrafted.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Cardwell right now is playing very, very well for a guy that's undrafted. Scored like 12 points the other day, 8 points sometime last week, getting a lot more run than any guy that would have, in his situation, an undrafted guy been able to get. Well, he's going to basically sign for the rookie minimum, a little over $1 million. And do you think he has any thought, even if he had eligibility, does he have any shot or any thought of going back to college? Absolutely not. Why? Because you're a professional athlete.
Yeah.
He bet on himself. He did the training. He got on the floor, and he's producing. What this tells me is Charles Bediako, 3 years ago, bet on himself, and now he doesn't like his position. And because he doesn't like his position, he doesn't like playing in empty G League games. He'd much rather play in the SEC. And because I'm not saying he failed, because he's a professional athlete.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he failed. I'm just saying that this just seems to me that guys are grasping at straws, trying to hang on to their eligibility, depending on what happens at the next level. And I feel like it's a slippery slope when you do that.
What even is amateurism anymore? Like, actually,
yes, right.
That is the talking point that I think we need to all come to agreement on. What defines amateurism anymore? It used to be, you don't get paid.
Right.
Well, now you get paid, and you have amateurs like in golf.
Yes.
You lose your amateur status when you start getting paid for events that you win.
Because you're a pro.
And I'm sure somewhere in these NIL contracts you have these performance-based incentives, which by law or by definition would be earnings from winning tournaments.
Yeah.
So I just don't even understand what this is anymore, because if we want to talk about what separates a professional from a college player at this point, you're both signing contracts.
Right.
We're already talking about multi-year deals. Duke is suing Darian Mensah. They're actually winning it right now, I believe. I think he can't.
I think it's going to go the same route as Damon Williams.
Yes. I mean, I think that whole debacle is probably going to go in the school's favor. But when you look at this situation, it's like, how do you even enforce how you're an amateur or not? Because you both have these contracts, some of them multi-year contracts, and the only difference is you're playing a bunch of older guys. Like that's really just the difference. So when are we going to be able to put our foot down and say, no, this is where amateurism ends? Right.
And I think if you're watching this and you're saying, well, it seems like you're talking out of both sides of your mouth, because it seems like when you say that, hey, Kewan Lacey agrees to a deal with Ole Miss to come back for another year. Is he now a professional signing a deal with another school? And so where does that eligibility, where does that gray area reside? And I think the NCAA is trying in real time to find that gray area. And yes, it does sound like you're talking out of both sides of your mouth when you're saying that a player agrees with the school in one regard, and then now we're questioning about eligibility. But I'm with you in the sense that I'm with Coach Calipari in the sense that you have this amount of time to exhaust your NCAA eligibility. And just like I said, we're running through that gray area of the COVID gray area of where eligibility begins and ends. And now it's like, hey, when did the college player that's actually now treated as a pro player, when did that begin? And that's a thing. It's another slippery slope as well, because it's like Alabama's trying to say, well, it really began after Bediako left, and had Bediako had the opportunity to become a pro player in college, he would have taken advantage of it. I just find it to be very, very interesting. I also find it interesting what the NCAA has come back and said, because we've mentioned that they've not been great when it comes to lawsuits overall. But it looks like on this one they're trying to fight it. But what they're doing is they're trying to fight it through the court or through the Congress system. What they're saying right now, this is from the NCAA, is that the NCAA is aware of media reports about a lawsuit filed against the NCAA by Charles Bediako. Mr. Bediako signed 3 NBA contracts after competing in college for 2 seasons. I find that really interesting, the way that they put that. Signed 3 NBA contracts after competing. So the NCAA has not and will not grant eligibility to any prospective or returning student athletes who have signed an NBA contract. Eligibility rules ensure high school students get a shot at earning scholarships, and we will continue to consistently apply and defend these rules. There's some wording in the language there that I found really interesting. They made sure to say he signed 3 NBA contracts to let everybody know this, to let the public know this is a professional basketball player. He signed 3 contracts. Now you can get to the wording of that. Right. There are 2-way deals and whatnot. He actually didn't get into an NBA game, but he did sign an NBA contract. Right. And then when they logjam in there, eligibility rules ensure high school student athletes get a shot, because what you're saying is that he's taking an opportunity from a kid in high school. So the NCAA is really painting themselves in a position by saying, we are the true arbiters, we are the true grounds for what amateurism is supposed to mean. It's supposed to mean high school athletes need that scholarship, not a professional basketball player. I just find it interesting because they have gone a lot of letter to the law, and now they're trying, in my opinion, to tug at some emotional strings with the wording of their language.
Yeah, and it's the wording that everyone has basically thrown in the NCAA's face about the whole high school athlete situation. Now, I will say that him coming back and playing this year wouldn't affect someone that's in high school right now, because he'd just be done after this year.
Correct.
So, the only way I could see this affecting anyone is maybe London Jemison's playing time, maybe, if he does end up playing, or another forward on Alabama. It's not going to affect someone. It's not going to affect like one of their recruits right now that's just dropping 25 points per game, beating up on a bunch of high schoolers. Like that wouldn't do anything. But I think they're saying in the future, if someone, let's just say this, they were a one and done, but they went undrafted and they were in the G League, and then they still have 3 years of eligibility left, then I could see where this can get a little bit tricky here. Like if Mark Sears only was here 1 year and then he just didn't go, he just went undrafted. I believe he played in 7 games for the Bucks this year, so he's out of this completely regardless. But it's just an interesting situation, and so weird. The fact that we're actually talking about this when just 5 years ago, or actually just 6 years ago, we were talking about how NIL might be a thing, and it might be coming soon. And now look how everything has unraveled in such a short amount of time, and they're calling on Congress for help in trying to enforce some of these rules, because let's just face it, someone needs to step in, because the NCAA cannot enforce anything. They're just a puppet agency, it feels like.
Yeah. Alabama released a short statement just by saying the University of Alabama supports Charles in his ongoing efforts to be reinstated for competition while he works to complete his degree.
Oh, man, yeah.
I thought that part was
you complete
hilarious.
that degree, Charles.
He's had 3 years. He left in 20.
Can,
He left in 2023. He could have taken off like.
Yeah, you complete that. You go right for that. Yeah, we're all in favor for you.
It's an interesting fight, but he could.
I mean, at least J.R. Smith switched sports.
Right,
like,
right.
At least now he's playing golf.
Right, yeah.
He's in his 30s, but he's playing golf.
Yeah, after making a lot of money in basketball. So this could get really interesting, but theoretically, he could play on Saturday when Alabama laces it up against Tennessee.
Yeah, and honestly, I'll be paying close attention, because I don't know if there's going to be cheers or boos.
Right.
Because that game's in Coleman Coliseum, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And typically, Nate Oates meets the media the day before, so it looks like maybe Friday if he sticks to his normal.
I just cannot wait.
I know. He sticks to his normal media availability. He could talk tomorrow, depending on. They're probably going to run that thing through lawyers, so it should be really interesting to see how it all shakes out there on the court as Alabama